Every summer Top 100. Every summer Top 100. He's got a voice that's really the bomb. He'll make a choice that'll aggravate Tom. I hate to spoil it, but when all's said and done, Merchant of Venus gonna be number one. Every summer Top 100. Yeah.
Oh, hey, welcome back to the Top 100. This is numbers 50 to 41. Now, I'm in the booth today because I'm working on a project. You may have noticed, if you've been watching the channel for the past year or so, that Dave Culling has been making these amazing reinterpretations of the Dice Tower theme in various styles, which they're great. I love listening to them. They're a blast. But I thought I'd help Dave out because I think there's one style that he hasn't done yet. And that's the nose flute. Here we go. Still working on it. I'll get to work. You watch the games.
Number 50, Ark Nova.
Ark Nova at number 50 is my highest ranked game that I do not have in my own collection. Ark Nova is a game where you are building a zoo. You are presented with a little map of your zoo with hex tiles where you can place enclosures for different animals, and you sort of build out and build your map. Of course, you do this through actions. And the actions exist on sort of a slider mechanism. So my acquiring new cards action might be over here, but the longer I leave it before I trigger it, the stronger that action is going to be. And every time I trigger an action, it goes back to the beginning of the line and sort of works its way forward again. There's tons of cards in Ark Nova. There's lots of animals. There's lots of endgame scoring. There's goals to achieve. There's sponsorships to acquire. It's a deep game. But it has a lot to explore, and I think the theme really works, which is why Ark Nova is my number 50.
Number 49, Reef.
Reef has fallen a little bit. Let's see, it was number 35 3 years ago. It's now 49. That's still pretty high up there. This is actually my highest ranked Emerson Matsuuchi title. Reef is a lovely abstract that has sort of a delicious engine building aspect to it. You're creating a reef made out of these colorful plastic components, stacking them up and forming patterns of these different colors. But you are also doing this through the use of these cards. And every time you use a card, you get certain pieces that you get to place on your board, but you are then scoring. And usually the scoring has nothing to do with the pieces that you just placed. So you have a bunch of cards in your hand and you're trying to figure out the order in which to play them because you want to play these pieces to be able to make this scoring card work, but you also need to play these pieces before that scoring card, so I need this in my hand, and you're drafting cards into your hand and trying to score as many points as possible. It's a cool puzzle, but also very accessible puzzle, and another one that my mom really enjoys playing. Reef from Emerson Matsuuchi.
Number 48, The Lost Ruins of Arnak.
The Lost Ruins of Arnak, which barely fits in the box since I've got the first expansion in here, at number 48 is, it didn't make the list 3 years ago, even though I think it existed 3 years ago. I hadn't had a chance to play this one yet. Arnak is a worker placement and deck building game, but it's got some twists in the deck building mechanism, in the way that the cards cycle through, the way you acquire them. It only plays 5 rounds, so there's not a ton of opportunity to get more cards into your deck. It's much more about what you do with those cards, placing your people out on the board, moving through the sort of exploration track along the side. There's enough of a twist here that it barely feels like a deck building game, really. It just has so much more going on here. The first expansion that has leaders and personalities really give a nice twist to this game. In fact, I highly recommend playing with them as quickly as you can to add sort of a focus to your particular character and the way that you're playing this game. There's a lot to explore, both thematically and gameplay-wise, in The Lost Ruins of Arnak. Number 48.
Number 47, Nations, the dice game.
Nations, the dice game continues to make progress, working its way forward on my list. It's number 47 now. It was 66 3 years ago. It didn't even make the list 6 years ago. It was at 139. So it's sort of this meteoric rise. Nations, the dice game, I like a good bit more than its big brother. Just plain old Nations. The dice game has you acquiring a bunch of dice at the beginning of the game, but you will acquire more civilization tiles throughout the course of the game, which swap out some of those dice for more specialized dice, which then make it easier to achieve certain goals, get more coins, have more military power. It has a lot of the same levers that the big brother pulls, but it does so more efficiently. And I really like the efficiency tuning that you're doing as you swap out the different dice to make your civilization work. Nations, the dice game, getting better as we go.
Cool. Number 46, Agricola.
Agricola sits at number 46. It's moved down, certainly, over the years. It was in the 20s, the 30s. It was even in my top 10 at one point. But it's holding steady around the 40s these days. Agricola is Uwe Rosenberg's, I guess, big debut in worker placement. It's certainly been iterated upon with other games like Caverna, which I haven't really played enough to even really rank against Agricola. I like the charm of Agricola, how it's about farming, and you are building out your farm, raising the animals, and you have the cards that represent your jobs and buildings that you can put out, and you have, either by dealing them or by drafting, you have your hand of cards, and you're trying to figure out how to best use that strategy to build out your farm. And I sort of like that. I like, using those jobs in a way that's going to be most efficient to me. Plus, the animals are adorable. So Agricola, I've had success playing this in app form with my kids. My youngest just likes feeding people. He's very concerned about feeding his people. Aren't we all, right? So still sticking around in the 40s, Agricola.
Number 45, Robo Rally.
At number 45, I'm going to grab this one because it's the most recent edition of Robo Rally. Robo Rally was a good bit higher on my list. It's slipped just a little bit. It hasn't seen as much playtime over the past couple of years. This is the 2016 edition of Robo Rally with some revised rules, some deck building mechanisms. There is an upcoming edition that's not available yet as of the filming of this video that will incorporate some of this stuff with some of the development from earlier versions of the game. I'm very excited to see how this goes. Robo Rally is a robot programming game where you have a certain number of registers and you are programming your robot to move forward, turn left, right, and try and hit flags before your opponent's robots. Of course, when you collide with other robots, other stuff is going to happen. You're going to get off track with your programming. You have lasers, you can acquire more weapons, you can start pushing each other around the board, you can push each other into pits. The board itself is dangerous. It has conveyor belts and crushers and smashers, and it's delicious fun. It's a lot of fun. Had a chance to play this just a month or so ago and played it with the kids and had a blast just smashing each other up and running into each other. And it's so much fun. So I'm very excited to see what the new edition does, but no matter which edition you pick up, Robo Rally is a lot of fun. It's number 45.
Number 44, Pathfinder Adventure Card Game.
Coming in at number 44 is the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. This is just the Rise of the Rune Lord set. There were many sets that came after this, but there was a lot of adventure just in this box. The base set had some basic cards and I think one adventure pack, and then you could get up to 6 more, or 6 total adventure packs. The adventure card game takes the world of Pathfinder, the role-playing adventure, and sort of mechanizes it. So it's a board game adventure. You have decks of cards that represent different locations, and the scenario you're dealing with has you exploring those locations, ultimately trying to take down the big bad that is in one of those piles, as well as the minions that are also sifted into other piles. Also inside those piles are basic enemies, equipment that you can get, and you have your own deck of cards that represents your character and your character's life. So you are spending those cards, recycling those cards, getting those cards back, but the more you spend, the closer you get to being knocked out. Officially, this game has permadeath. It's a big campaign, so it's very painful if you lose your character a good distance down the road. We have played that it is not permadeath. You just don't get the rewards if you get knocked out, which has been a lot kinder for playing with my kids. And there's still a lot in here. This is why we haven't gotten any other sets. We're still working our way through this. It is, I think we're maybe in deck 3 or so of 6. There's still a lot to explore in Rise of the Runelords, but I love the system. It's a deck building game in slow motion because each adventure you will have acquired a bunch of stuff that is hiding inside those decks before you take down the big bad. And then once you've succeeded, hopefully, you then divvy up the spoils because you can only hold so many cards in your deck. So maybe 16 cards or so if you've leveled up a couple times. And you can only hold a certain number of each type of card. So if my character is only able to hold 5 weapons, but I picked up 2 on the adventure, well, now I've got to ditch 2 before I've reset my character. So I can give those others to somebody else that might need a really good weapon. Does this fit with you? Does this spell fit? I picked up a piece of armor I can't even use because I just got a lucky roll, but you can use it. And it becomes a real team building aspect. What can we do to make these characters better for the next adventure? I really like that part of this, the planning, the getting ready for the next adventure, the next challenge in Rise of the Runelords, or more specifically, the Pathfinder adventure card game.
Number 43. Clank, a deck building adventure.
It's sort of a death building adventure.
43 is Clank, a deck-building adventure. My favorite, at least until recently, of these is the one that's in my library, Clank in Space. Clank is a deck builder where the cards that you draft allow you to then move around a map. There's a dungeon delving original, there's the space version which has you moving around some sort of starship, and then the new recent Clank Catacombs is probably my favorite of the group, but I still have this, and it's hard for me to grab another edition of the same system. What I like about In Space, though, is that there's like an energy barrier that prevents you from just delving straight into the dungeon and grabbing a quick treasure and getting out really quickly and pushing endgame unnecessarily. I mean, that's a strategy, but it sort of forces the game to go quickly, and I don't like that as much. This one forces you to hit some data points, a couple of tags in the main area of the board first, and then you can drop the force field and get into where the big treasure stuff is. So it has more of an arc, I guess, less pushable. Clank Catacombs does that as well because you have to develop the map enough so that the treasures start coming out, and the longer you wait, the higher the treasures are. And I like that system as well. Clank is delightful. It's that deck building, fine-tuning mechanism, but also with a positional element that makes it very important how you've tuned your deck, but also taking advantage of opportunities as they come up. It's really, really cool. I have not played either of the Legacy versions. They just announced Legacy 2. I have not played Legacy 1. I'm sure I would love it, but I have a lot of Clank already. It's delightful, and I want to play more of it. Clank, in space, in the catacombs, in the original dungeon. It's all great.
Number 42. Comic Hunters.
Debuting just ahead of Clank at number 42 is Comic Hunters, which I feel a little bad about throwing on the list because this is, as of this recording, still very difficult to find. Comic Hunters is a comic book themed drafting game with several different methods of drafting these comic book covers that you're trying to get into your hand and then play out into your collection. So you might have just a simple draft. I choose a card and pass it. And then there might be a comic convention where you've got a whole grid of cards and you get to slide them around and then take a row of one symbol, that sort of thing. And then once you have them in your hand, they aren't in your collection yet. You have to pay for the cards you put in your collection. So not only are you drafting the cards to play, to create sets of a particular hero or something, but you're also taking them for money so that you can pay for the cards you want to put in your collection. It's delightful. It's really, really fun. This is currently only available in Brazil. But I keep hearing rumors that there's something coming, something brewing, and I hope we hear more about a North American release or an easily accessible release of Comic Hunters, which for now is number 42.
Number 41, Cubitos.
We'll finish off this set with number 41, John D. Clare's Cubitos. It is a die-rolling race game where you are, and no, that's not SpongeBob, that's a piece of cheese in Lederhosen. You are collecting dice that represent different powers, and you are rolling them. It's a bag building mechanism, deck building, bag building. You're drawing these dice, although you're not really drawing them. You're sort of cycling them through in a little bit more directed manner, but you have to cycle through your whole set before you can bring them back, basically. Rolling these dice, activating their powers, pushing your luck a little bit as you try and get more symbols, but if you push too much, you might bust and then you don't get a whole lot, but you get a little bit of a reward, even if you bust in a round. It has a lot of the things that make me very excited to play these sorts of games. And it hasn't, I have to be honest, it hasn't landed as well with my family as I would like, but I'm still super excited. From the moment I played Cubitos, I wanted to play more of it, and I'm delighted to find out there's an expansion on the way. By the time you see this, I will have backed it, I know. It's not my highest rated John D. Clare game, but Cubitos, debuting at number 41, is a gem. There we go. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Every summer, top 100. Every summer, top 100. Every summer, top 100. Every summer, top 100. Yeah.